You're listening to the Comic Bookster podcast, your source for comics, past, present, and future.
Dragged from what could be any comic shop in the United States to host this incredibly nerdy podcast are some of the most enthusiastic comic book readers ever assembled. They are the Comic Booksters, dedicated to discussing news, speculation, and recommendations for all comic buyers.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Comic Booksters, your source for comics past, present, and future. I'm Nerdcore, and I'm once again joined by Obi.
Welcome back to Comic Booksters.
And today it's time for something a little different. After weeks of just movie reviews and DC Rebirth and Civil War 2, we decided to give you a break. And we are going to once again open back up the Longbox Crypt. As you know, the first time we did this was in honor of Darwin Cook with DC's The New Frontier. But today, Obi, what exactly are we looking at?
Green Lantern, Sector 2814, the first trade.
And that was by Len Wein and Dave Gibbons, right?
Dave Gibbons, yeah.
Oh my god, I love Dave Gibbons' artwork.
You can tell it's Dave Gibbons right away, too. There's, no...
He's a very distinct style. I haven't seen him draw much as of late. I can't remember the last time I read a book that he actually drew, but I know he's been writing a lot. Ironically enough, some of the latest stuff he did in my most recent memory, well, back before New 52's relaunch, was the Green Lantern Corps comic, when Jeff Johns did Green Lantern Rebirth and then spun the new series out of that. But great artist, loved his work on Watchmen. So, Obi, where do we come into this story at?
Alright, we come into the story after Hal's been banished from Earth by the Guardians for a year. He had to patrol his sector and not just focus on the planet Earth. And when you come into Hal finally coming back to Earth, you see some of the consequences of him being gone for the year.
Oh, yeah, he's practically unemployed at this point. His relationship with Carol Ferris is most certainly on the rocks. No one's really expecting Green Lantern to be returning.
Yeah, no. And then, of course, right away, he goes to see Carol, and he catches her in the middle of embracing somebody, but it's not a true embrace, it's her congratulating somebody on getting a promotion.
Now, let's talk about a little bit of the supporting cast that we have here, because we not only at Ferris Air have Carol Ferris at this point, but we also end up having John Stewart as well.
That's not until way later in the book, though.
Right. So Green Lantern comes back, and he's encountering villains like Javelin and...
The Shark.
And the Shark, yeah.
And Rosie and her wrecking crew, I'm not sure what they're called.
I believe that's Demolition Crew, yeah. But we also get introduced to the Predator for the first time during this arc as well. Mm-hmm. So walk me through a little bit of what's going on. I know he teams up with the Flash at one point too.
He doesn't. It's not more of a team up. He actually goes to meet the Flash because he finds out that to see what's been going on Earth, and then he finds out that the Flash at this point, this is right around where the Flashes start to go on trial. So the Flash can't really help him, and it really starts to bother Hal that his longtime friend Barry is just not all there in his head, and that's always been a rock for him to go talk to if Carol wasn't understanding the situation. Yeah, it starts off with the Javelin and them trying to steal a special motor for the solar jet. Mm-hmm. So the Javelin does successfully steal the motor initially, and then he decides to put it into a rocket himself to blow up Ferris aircraft. In this whole trade, you deal with, there's a senator that's trying to make Ferris aircraft disappear. He keeps calling the Monitor. The Monitor is the senator's main connection. He set him up with the Javelin, and then he set him up with the Shark, and then he sets him up with Rosie and the Demolition Crew.
So this entire thing is leading into the Crisis on Infinite Earths, obviously, because the Monitor's trying to set up what he needs to properly defend the multiverse, and for whatever reason, the downfall of Ferris aircraft somehow works into that.
Right.
A big thing with this, and it's weird coming off the tails of Hal having to have sacrificed Earth for a year, to go out and protect the sector, because a big theme with this run of stories is sacrifice.
And consequences.
Because as you know, he is defending Ferris Air for most of this, and once it's almost like his focus now that he's returned to Earth has narrowed even more, and that also kind of puts him once again at odds with the Guardians.
Yeah, and it becomes a really big part of this trade towards the end of it, when the demolition crew comes to attack. He actually is called by the Guardians to go protect another planet, because the other planet is about to implode.
Mm-hmm.
So she even sees him fly away. Like, he flies away in their most dire time of need, and that becomes a whole another issue between Carol and Hal.
Yeah, because now Carol feels like she's been abandoned again, and that puts Hal in a very interesting position as far as needing to make a choice, which he eventually does.
By the end of this trade, yeah, he does make his choice.
Which is what really makes it make sense that they brought Jon Stewart in as a supporting character at this juncture.
One of the really cool parts of this trade is the fight with the shark.
Mm-hmm.
When Hal's fighting him in the shark's mind, because the shark basically eats your conscience,
right,
and holds it in his own mind. While Hal's on basically his deathbed, Carol and
Tom Kamalkiu,
they go to the hospital and sneak the lantern in to Hal to give him enough power to basically render the shark in like a catatonic state almost. It basically breaks the shark's mind.
Nice.
The whole time while he's just fighting Green Lantern is basically killing everyone else that's in his mind around Hal to prove to Hal that like you can't do anything. I have full control of this situation. What he doesn't realize is that like a Green Lantern's power comes from his will, I guess, because Hal just wills himself to win. Now, once that fails for the Senator again, that's when he ends up calling the Monitor and getting Rosie and the demolition crew to go take care of Ferris aircraft. Going back to our point where once the demolition crew shows up, Hal gets called by the Guardians and has to leave Earth to go save another planet, which is really cool scenes, because you go see him collecting asteroids to build these spires to hammer them through the core of that planet so it doesn't blow up.
Right.
And you remember Tomar-Ray? I can never pronounce
Tomar-Ray?
Yeah, I can never pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He remembers him wanting to do this to save Krypton, but he couldn't do it fast enough pace, and luckily Hal was able to do it quick enough.
Which is pretty awesome that Hal's able to use some expertise. I kind of liken it to Green Lantern the Animated Series, where I believe it's in the first couple episodes. They call him Rev. He's voiced by Kurtwood Smith, but he's a new Green Lantern, and his homeworld's put in jeopardy. The Red Lanterns are about to blow it up, and he tells Kilowog to do what he wish that Kilowog could have done with his own planet before it was destroyed. Save what he wished he could save. And it took Kilowog a second, but he realized that Rev was talking about the people of the planet. So Kilowog saved the people of Rev's planet before the planet was demolished. And it really kind of calls back to that. Just one Lantern using the final wishes of another to really be able to save the day and do the right thing.
Yeah. So while Hal's out in space doing all of this for the Guardians, there's no one protecting Ferris aircraft at this point, and it is just getting leveled, left and right, completely leveled. And that is when you meet the Predator.
Yeah, and that's... Talk about a character that's become huge in the Green Lantern mythos since then. But here he's kind of played a little bit differently. We eventually find out that he is the entity of love that possesses certain individuals and powers the Star Sapphires. But here he's kind of introduced as kind of a vigilante type character.
Yeah, at this point you kind of think that he's Mr. Smith. That's the guy that is a part of a company that is very interested in Ferris aircraft not falling apart. So Mr. Smith goes and threatens the Senator because he keeps trying to attack Ferris aircraft, and he's like, if you keep doing this, I can't promise your safety. And by the end of the thing, the Predator does end up killing him. And at that point, you don't see Mr. Smith until the end of this, where he goes and talks to Carol's father at the table when they're getting set up to start reconstruction of Ferris aircraft. But he literally he handles all of those the demolition crew in no time, he cuts their armor apart with like his nails. I don't even know what kind of material that is because they're really hard. They run through brick walls with that stuff and no effect, and he cuts it perfectly in half.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy kind of his dialogue there where they don't even realize what he's done until he's like, go ahead and shake your head. I was like, what do you mean shake your head? He shakes and his helmet just falls completely in half. It's hilarious. It's a great visual gag.
Yeah. And then, again, going back to Gibbons doing this, it just looks fantastic, especially the parts where Hal goes through space and goes to Oa. I couldn't imagine this looking. I mean, there's other artists that could do good, but this just screams something for Gibbons to do.
Yeah, going back to what we said earlier, Dave Gibbons, he did Watchmen, he did For the Man Who Has Everything. Stories that really have some powerful artwork to them, and seeing him on a consistent run on this book, it's no different. It's just wonderful. Frankly, I kind of miss when this was kind of the go-to style for comics, and no one did it better than Dave Gibbons.
Yeah. So after the demolition crew wrecks Ferris aircraft, Hal comes back and starts to talk to Carol, and this is when they come into that fight about when she needed him most, he was gone because the Guardians called and he had to leave. And she's like, are you going to be your own man, or are you going to always be someone's whipping dog?
And of course this leads to a big conundrum for Hal, where now he goes and talks to some of his oldest friends like Superman and Flash, and really puts on the line what he's going to do. And he comes to the decision where he is not going to be the Guardian's lapdog anymore, and he is going to quit the Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah. And then on his way back to Oa to quit the Green Lantern Corps, he gets stopped by some of his best friends in the Corps. One is a member that he made her not marry her husband so that she could stay in the Corps.
Yeah, and I believe that was Kat Matsui, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm sure we'll come back and revisit later sessions of this story. There's 3 volumes total collected, but Kat Matsui obviously becomes a big part of this story as, you know, John Stewart is once again reintroduced, as we said before, back into the Green Lantern storylines proper at this point, and those 2 characters end up having quite a history together.
So they stop him. They try to tell him, no, don't do this. You're not thinking of the thing. You're the best one of us. Again, going back to the old saying that Hal's the best Green Lantern there ever was and never will be. They tried and they can't, and then he goes to the Guardians and he tells them, and they're like, are you sure you want to make this choice? And he ends up making this choice, and all of them come and meet him in the court, I guess you would want to call it, where he gives up his ring, and they all say bye to him. And the one that seems most affected by it is Aresia.
Yes, which talk about another character that Hal ends up having history with. Somewhat of a, as much as I love the character of Aresia, it's a very creepy sort of way. Again, something else that we'll come back into at a later date.
Yeah. But this book is just amazing. I ripped through this book, and it's 192 pages, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say I finished it in 2 hours.
No, it's a fantastic read.
And it's not like it's not wordy. It's not like written like a modern comic where there's a lot in this book. It just reads well. The art just keeps you interested. This book is fantastic.
Honestly, to be quite honest with you, the way that this book is set up, and like you said, you went through in about 2 hours. I would love if DC, as one of their animated projects, just did a trilogy of Green Lantern movies that were this and then the subsequent 2 volumes, because you really get a great idea of Green Lantern lore. A lot of Green Lantern concepts are re-solidified, and some new stuff spins out of this that have become very important to the mythos here at a later date. And personally, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity that no one's been doing this. I mean, and I thought that the 2 animated films that DC did with Warner Brothers Studios,
they're great,
were great as well. So, you know, if people want to see more Green Lantern,
Emerald Knight, man, that's what it's called, right?
I think it's Emerald Knights. Yeah, Emerald Knights. And I like First Flight as well a lot. But I think these would make for a great trilogy because they read very cinematically. Like,
yeah, but that's just because that's just Gibbons' art, and I don't know how you pronounce that dude's last name.
Wein.
Yeah, Wein. He writes great stories.
Yeah, and he's a veteran of this. He's currently working on Swamp Thing for DC, which he actually co-created Swamp Thing with Bernie Wrightson. So the guy's a veteran. He's one of the co-creators of Wolverine. So, anyway, any final thoughts you want to put forward on Green Lantern Sector 2814?
Any final thoughts? Not really. I mean, read this trade. It's great.
If you're a Green Lantern fan, I highly recommend.
Even if you're not, it might make you one.
Yeah, because it's solid writing. There are some very 80s concepts to it. Personally, it was something that I thought was kind of laughable, even though they call it out as a stupid plan in the book, was like we were talking about when Tom and Carol smuggle the battery to Hal, and Carol dresses up like a nurse in the hospital. that was hilarious. But
It's a good time.
but it's one of those things. Hal Jordan's given up the Green Lantern ring before. This, I believe, was the first time, and it's a great story.
Man, this is a good story. I can't put it into words. It's great.
All right, so we'll give a Green Lantern Sector 2814 a must-read grade. We're going to wrap it up this time for the Comic Booksters. I know this is a little bit of a shorter episode. Things have been hectic, but we did want to get one in the can here to be able to keep you guys with something to listen to. Once again, please go ahead and subscribe or follow us. We're on Stitcher, we're on Podbean, we're on iTunes. Once again, I'm Nerdcore, he's Obi, and keep reading.
Keep reading comics.
Thanks again for tuning into the Comic Bookster podcast. We would love to hear from you with feedback and suggestions. You can send those to us by email at thecomicbooksters@gmail.com or on Twitter @comicbooksters. And be sure to follow us on Facebook. So long, everybody.